Hey guys, this is Mark. Welcome to the part 2 video of our Building a Chat App series. If you are just starting, I recommend going back to part 1 because it includes a lot of details that you would need to have in your implementation as you follow along. Specifically, we focused on the layout and laying out all the components on the screen, adding support for local storage to save nickname and retrieve it so the user does not have to enter their nickname, the mechanics of sending messages and receiving messages, rendering messages on the screen. All of that information is provided in part 2. In addition to that, there is also a CSS extension just so the messages are styled appropriately depending whether they are received or sent. And there are a few little implementation details that are missing, and that's what the part 2 is focusing on specifically. Now we will proceed with adding logic so the messages, when they are received from the same user, they can be grouped under that username, and that's where we will continue. Part 2 is significantly shorter than part 1, but the series doesn't stop with that. There are other plans that I have to implement chat history and add support for push notifications, and there are some other things that sending images and files, basically building a complete chat solution and demonstrate. Most importantly, I want to demonstrate how to get it done with Backendless and Codeless. So let's dig in and see what the remainder of the current scope entails with the part 2 video. The best place to implement this will be inside of this listener where the messages arrive. Since we have access to both the collection of the messages that were previously saved in it and the current message, it will be a matter of just adding an additional property to the data object that sits inside of the command. And for this, let's do the following. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to check if this list already contains data, but this will be a part of the assignment of the new properties. So here we will do the following: set property in, and then the property will be set inside of this object, data of the current message that we received, the command. The property will be called previous message, prev message. And then the value will be dependent on whether this list already has something in it, then it will be the previous message, or it could actually be the very first one. In this case, there is no previous message. So in here, the value, we will do the logic where we test the size of this list. So if list is empty, and that's the list. So if the list of our repeater is empty, meaning that we received the very first message, then the value that we assign to the previous message will be null because there is no previous message. And otherwise, if it is not empty, that what we want to do is we want to get the very first message, because the first message before we insert it will be the previous after we do this insertion. So in this list, we want to get, and that list is the list from the repeater. We want to get first message. Yes. And with this logic right here, we will be linking this object with the previous one. And just let me go over that one more time. So we will be assigning a property in this object, which is the one that we just received. The property name is prev message, previous message. And then the value is either null if our repeater is empty, or if it is not empty, it will be the message that is contained in the position number 1. So with this, every single message will point to the previous one, and then the very first message will contain value null. And with this logic, we now have control to add another logic that will be providing us the effect of displaying sender name or not. So now with all of this information, let's return to the visibility test of this block. So this block right now is not visible if the message that is displayed is from the actual user who is the sender. So this means that this visibility logic right here needs to be modified accordingly. Let's just refactor this logic just because it's going to be more complex, sort of from scratch. So first of all, let's get this, change it to OR, and let's change it to external inputs. So the first condition is we want to check this. Let me just make a copy of this. All right. So, and by the way, I will check it to equals. So if sender ID of the current message is the same as my ID, then in this case, we don't want to show it. Also, if, let me do this thing right here. So if the sender ID of the previous message is the same as the sender ID of the current message, then we also don't want to show it. So for this, let's just do get property and say sender ID of the current message is the same as object get property, and that will be prev message dot sender ID of the previous message. So for this, we also get it from here. Okay, so that's the logic. So once again, if the sender ID of the current message is the same as my ID, or if the sender ID of the current message is the same as the sender ID of the previous message, then in either one of these cases, we do not want to show the that block that displays it. So it means that we need to prefix it with not, or like this. So if either one of these conditions is true, then we do not want to show that block. That's why this is not, and then these two conditions are grouped with or. So let's see how that works. So first of all, send a message. Okay, that works well. And let's bring this another page that I have and reload the page and then send it out. Test. Okay, Joe showed up. And then test 1. And as you can see, we get exactly this effect that I wanted to reach, like multiple messages sent from the same user. They carry the same label. So now if I were to open a third window and then initialize it with a different nickname, Bob, message from Bob. And as you can see, message from Bob now has this tag that indicates who the message is from. And with this, it really completes this implementation where we have exactly the same logic that I demonstrated initially when we just started this video. Now, there is one more thing that I wanted to demonstrate, that there is a known problem that I haven't addressed yet. Specifically, the problem looks like this. Let me demonstrate it first. So if I were to have a chat with between 2 or more users, and let me create that environment. So if I were to start sending a bunch of messages, right? So as you can see, I'm sending messages here. They are showing up in this user interface. What will happen is that when there are too many messages that can fit in this space, we will be getting the following effect. As you can see, these messages are getting out of the allocated space. And then the same thing goes on the other side. So what we want to do is fix this where the messages are contained within the space, and you can scroll through all these messages without this kind of effect. So for this, if we switch to the user interface, there are a couple of things that you need to do. Number one, select this outer block that contains everything. Okay, and in the overflow, so under general overflow, you want it to be hidden. That's number one. And then for the messages itself, there is also this overflow. You want it to be set to scroll. And I believe that's all it takes. So let's just rerun this page. And I will refresh this one. And let's just populate it with a bunch of messages and see what happens. And as you can see, now we have this scrolling where we can scroll through these messages. And I will add a few from this user and then more from this user. And there is no this overflow effect. So at this point, they are appearing absolutely correct, exactly how we want it to be. There is another thing that I wanted to point out, but we will not be building this logic because it is already implemented on the page that I referenced in the marketplace. The effect of this is that since we're just rendering this content as is, it actually supports, in the current implementation that you and I were building, it supports just raw HTML. So if I were to do something like this, and I just say here, bold text, and I send it, as you can see, it shows up as bold text, okay? Or you can just send a link, and for some people, you can see it as a feature, but for others, it may not necessarily appear as such. So if I just do a link and just say, click me, then this appears as a link. And in fact, it is clickable. So I click on this and then our page shows up. This is possible to fix. And the fix for this would go into the logic of this input field. So here in the input field, in the on key down, before you send it out, you can actually do screening and replacement of all the characters that would make up an HTML text. And for you to see how it works, if you were to go into the page that you install from the marketplace, and I will just switch to that page, I have it right here, and then select this input field. So this is the page that I already had before, and this is the page that you get when you install it from the marketplace. So in here, you will see that there is this logic where I created a function called escape special characters. And in here, using regular expression, we just do the replacement of all the characters that really make up HTML text. And in here, in the actual message that is being sent out and the name of the user ID, we do the replacement of all of these characters. As a result, in this implementation that you get from the marketplace, it's going to be impossible to actually send HTML that is executable and that renders as HTML. It's going to be rendered as plain text. But in the page that you and I have built through the course of this video, that logic is not there, but I pointed out so you know exactly where to find it. And that's it, guys. That's the basic implementation of the chat. Other things that I would like to demonstrate, and that will be in the separate videos, they are support for sending images, support for sending files, creating one-on-one chats, because this is a group chat. I would like to demonstrate how to implement push notifications when a message is received, and let's say you're not in that app, how to get notified about this. Or really any other, or creating message history, that would be a big one. If you have any suggestions of what you would like to see, please leave a comment. Let us know what you would like to see implemented that may go above and beyond just the chat. So please let us know. We want this to be kind of an ever-evolving application. There will be other apps that I will be building with you with this step-by-step guide. I do hope you find this useful. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy coding with Backendless.